inspect and accept if you have this clause. Are you ready to start? Okay. If you have this clause. So you have to determine, the government has to determine whether the completed project or service conforms exactly what the government orders from the contractor and can therefore be accepted. So just like you have some really great employees that do everything they're supposed to do and they have your company's best interest in heart, and you have others that not so much, if the government should be doing this to make sure that they're getting exactly what they were contracted with. Obviously, some people in the government do things to the best of their abilities, others not so much. So, and it becomes a contractual issue because let's say, for example, you're supposed to provide this product and it's supposed to meet certain acceptance criteria. And the government just sort of, I really didn't get a chance to do it this time, and sort of blows it off. And then the next one comes in and you know, they just, oh yeah, well the last one was accepted, so I'm sure this one's accepted, and just kind of keep going. What they've done is they've created precedents. So if there's ever litigation between you and the government over a dispute about whether or not you should be paid for those items, you can always come back to say, well, if they weren't compliant, why didn't you tell me about it from the beginning, which is when I started providing? Because then what they're going to want you to do is pay to retrofit all the ones that were not compliant. But, so that's the two sides of that coin. The extent of the inspection varies with the dollar value of the contract and the type of product or service being procured. So really high dollar value items, they're going to spend some time inspecting typically because it's a big cost item to the government, which is why if you see like F-18s or any of the weapon systems, a lot of inspections because it's a high dollar value. But they have limited resources to be able to conduct these inspections, so they really have to use their time wisely. They're not going to inspect every single thing you do. Considered successful when the supplies and services that we give them meet the contractual requirements, or if we give them non-conforming supplies or services that they reject them. So just what you expect. If we give them good product, they're supposed to accept them. If we give them bad product, they're supposed to reject them. That's the way the system's designed to work. Quality assurance. So the government has shifted from a I'm the government, I'm responsible for your quality assurance to why am I the government responsible for your quality assurance? You should be responsible for your quality assurance. So they're kind of making that shift in responsibility to say you should be responsible for your own quality assurance of your products. But they do have things like, you'll see contracts that have inspection clauses where they can come in and look at your manufacturing process. They'll have warranty clauses that say your product has to be guaranteed, just like you would have warranty in your commercial contracts. They're expected to see the same kind of thing. And certain quality requirements that are deemed necessary to protect the government's interests. So, you know, if I give them this cup and it works great today, and tomorrow, you know, stuff starts leaking out the bottom, today stuff starts leaking out the bottom, they're not gonna, there should be a warranty on that, where they should be able to return it and get a good product.
If there isn't a warranty in effect on that product, will they make a suggestion of one, or is it?
So if they do their homework, they have surveyed all the cup manufacturers and they found out what the general warranty is on these things. And that's the requirement they put in the RFP.
It's an implied warranty.
Right. Explicit warranty is what you're talking about. Government quality assurance is conducted before acceptance. So they should be doing whatever quality review that they're going to do before they actually sign off on the acceptance document. Because now, if they've signed off on it, it becomes more of a hassle for them to actually accept your product or service and get it checked. No contract precludes the government from inspection. So even if you have a commercial items contract, they can still ask to inspect things. Particularly, they might not be able to come in and inspect your manufacturing line, but they would still be able to inspect the products as they come in the door. And at a minimum, count to make sure you deliver the correct number. All non-conforming supplies and services are supposed to be rejected, right off the bat. And when they reject them, they tell you you have X number of days to get these fixed. And if you don't comply with that, you can be hit with liquidated damages or late penalties. The commercial items shall rely on contractor's existing QA system. So whatever your existing system is for checking your quality of products before it goes out, that can be used as a substitute for compliance with government inspection unless customary practice allows for in-process inspection. So let's say, for example, you have your manufacturing process that you're doing design work, and your commercial customers send you over the CAD drawings, you align your machines to be able to handle this, you buy all the raw materials, you get everything loaded up, and at that point, you produce the first one. Now, if you allow your commercial customers to come in and inspect at that point to see that the first one is correct, then you would need to allow the government to come in and inspect that first one. So it needs to be aligned with your commercial practices if you're doing commercial.
First article.
In that case, yeah. Whatever, and I'm just using first article as an example, but whatever you allow your commercial customers to do is what the government would expect to do on commercial item contracting. The quality assurance and acceptance services of other agencies are used when effective and in the best interest. So in other words, let's say you're providing a widget to the Department of Energy, and let's say you're providing the same widget to Health and Human Services. Health and Human Services can rely on Department of Energy's inspection and acceptance of you. So if you're producing it correct for them and they're the exact same specs, they use the same reports. We have to assume responsibility for timely delivery and satisfactory performance. So if we turn a product in and it's not compliant, we are now late on the contract. So if it was due day 10 on the contract and we turn it in on day 10, but it's not good enough, we're late on the contract because our revisions are going to take some time before we get it back over to them. Performance includes furnishing the government with the quantity and quality of items the contractor agreed to deliver and for which the government agreed to pay. So remember that proposal milestone chart or any delivery order. The delivery order is going to state when certain products and services have to be delivered. Your proposal schedule, the schedule for your contract is going to show those same dates. So that's what they're verifying. So each milestone, they're doing that check to make sure that they're in sync. Government inspection and acceptance duties are to identify the inspection method required by the contract, perform the inspections, and determine if acceptance has occurred. So inspection and acceptance are contract unique. So your contract terms and conditions for acceptance and inspections may be different than mine. So what the Corps has to do is know exactly for my contract, what are the inspection and acceptance criteria, acceptance times. I have to go off and conduct them, those inspections and acceptance, and then I have to state whether or not acceptance has occurred. So either I looked at your stuff and saw that it was good and accepted it, or I looked at your stuff, saw that it was bad, and did not give you acceptance. Once the government does that, they have to inspect products and services. They have to recommend acceptance if everything conforms to requirements. They have to recommend rejection if the products don't conform. And they have to evaluate the contractor's reply to notice of rejection. So if you don't get an acceptance document signed, then you can assume your products did not meet contractual requirements, and you will get a rejection letter rejecting that latest quantity of product. And they'll tell you what you have to do to fix it. Or they'll tell you what's wrong with it, and you figure out what to do to fix it. So the Corps, when they're looking at your contract, they're trying to figure out what inspection method was stated under the requirements, so whatever was in the original RFP. And the FAR clause that supports that inspection clause, or those are two places they can find that information, or if it's a performance-based contract, then there's going to be that quality assurance surveillance plan and that standard that you had to meet. So that's how they'll check those. You're required to accomplish all inspection and testing needed to ensure that the product or service conforms to quality requirements before payment is made. So the government we can't, you talked about this from the very beginning, unless we have a signed acceptance documents in our hot little hands, we cannot put an invoice together. And if we don't put an invoice together, we can't submit an invoice and you can't wait 30 days to get paid, right? So that is a critical component. Government may get your product, so let's say you're supposed to deliver computers. They could decide to test these computers to make sure they work before they do acceptance. Particularly if they get a sense, let's say for example you've sent a couple over and the boxes have been broken, and granted that may not have been your fault, they got damaged in shipping, or maybe they heard from another agency that your computers only work the first 15 minutes and then they shut off, or whatever the issue is. If they have any reason to believe that you're not checking your own quality control and making sure that these products are compliant, then they have the right to do it. And if there's any kind of customary market practices for inspection, you don't really see a whole lot. Typically, as agencies, we don't say, am I bothering you?
I didn't want to bother you.
They don't want to, they want to make sure that whatever you give to commercial customers, they get the same, right? Here's what the standard inspection clause is, that it requires contractors to provide and maintain an inspection system that is acceptable to the government. So tell me a little bit about what your inspection systems look like in your own companies. Because quite honestly, I'm tired of talking. Kevin, what are yours?
We just, well, the general manager or the manager of the guys look at the blueprint, go around and double check everything, make sure that it is what is, to the print. Or if it's a non-print modification, it's just something we say this is what it should look like, and we just build it. And again, it's just the manager goes around and looks, make sure, yes, this is what the plan is for, and that type of thing.
Okay, good. And that's built into your process?
Yes.
What's your process?
Well, we're trying to go through 9001, that's it's 2, it's a requisite. We found the best way was to find, like, a lot of people call him a traveler, we call him a work order router, and it's with every job that comes through, we have the purchase order, and before all that, the invoicing and all that stuff, we have a work order router that shows what the customer is, the name of the product, the date it was ordered, the date it's due, and then we have all the processes it has to undergo in order to be completed, and each process has to have, like, next to it has a barcode that gets scanned, and then the lead guy of that department will sign off and date on that traveler, saying, okay, my work on this part is completed, and then all tolerance has been held. That way, if it goes on and there's another problem found in welding, we know it's probably the department before that.
Good.
So
It's very thorough.
track that way.
What do you guys do?
We do random visual checks on product and color and pH checks.
Okay. So one of the things that we're going to develop when I come visit is what your quality assurance plan is. So the kind of stuff that you just talked about, all we're going to do is like flow chart it and figure out what the process is and be able to explain it in a paragraph or two, so that when you're ever asked for a quality assurance plan or a QC plan or something like that, take it out and tweak it and it's ready to go. The inspection and the requirements clause allows the government the right to make inspections and perform tests while the contractor's work is in progress. So if you've got something going down your production line, the government can't walk in and say, stop the presses, I'm going to go over and pick this one item out. And of course, in order to stop, you have to stop the entire line. And so that's going to be expensive, right? Because you're going to take the whole line down, have to bring the whole line back up. They can't do that. But what they can do is say you're going to be producing these pens, and before the pen lids get produced in one line and the pen bodies get produced in another line. And while this takes a shorter period of time to make, these are just all in a bin, waiting to be inserted like this. They could come in to that bin and expect those items that are in the bin. So in other words, you've taken them out of your production process to be in a wait mode while we're getting this pen printed and filled in with green ink. So they're not supposed to, there should be no undue expense to you by them conducting an inspection. And then it requires the contractor to keep and make available to the government complete records of its inspection work. So you're saying you're doing a visual inspection about color, you're doing a pH test. So just sort of documenting when that happens so that you can, if they ever come in, you can show them throughout the time, here's the inspection reports that we've collected over this. And it can be an automatic, you can do something on an iPad, as long as you have those records. This, do you keep that work in process, what did you call it?
Work order router.
Yeah, and you, after it's done, you keep those someplace?
Yeah, we have we keep electronic copy and a paper copy.
Yeah.
And the last signature is being the operation manager saying it's okay to ship. So
Okay.
then he'll make the scan.
Perfect, so they can come in and audit those up there. What do you guys, do you have keep paper trail or automated trail?
No, not this time.
How difficult would that be to implement?
I'm sorry?
How difficult would that be to implement?
Not that difficult, quite frankly, it's just a matter of, getting scanners in place to do it. But once the blueprint version of the stuff is built, it's checked off and put in the drawer. We got the paper copies, we'll have electronic copies.
Yeah, as long as you have paper.
We got that.
Sometimes there are higher level contract quality requirements, particularly if the item is critical or complex, or in situations where the technical requirements require the government to maintain control of work operations and process controls and inspections. So sometimes there are things where a company might manufacture something, and then it might have to go to the government for secret sauce, and then come back to the contractor to finish the remainder of processing. They have to keep records of that. That's when you need higher level quality control. Or if they have to concentrate the government's attention on organization planning and work instructions and document control. So if there's constant change of something, like maybe you get part of it done and again it's according to spec, and you send that over to the government and then they run some tests on it and they realize, well, wait a minute, we also needed to do this, and so there's constant change, then that would be a complex requirement. And then to comply with government-specific inspection systems, quality control systems, and quality programs. So remember we talked about the difference between NASA and Department of Education in processing claims. NASA, you have to be right here in order to be compliant, whereas Department of Education, you might have a broader range of acceptable variance with your products. Also, you need to determine if acceptance has occurred. So the contracting officer representative has to, after they do everything we just described, say yes or no. Is this acceptable or is it not? Now keep in mind, if your cleaning products, once they get your cleaning products and they've used them the first time, they probably don't have to go through this inspection every time. It's only for the kind of things that could cause them extreme harm if they weren't compliant or if it's a very unique item. If work has been explicitly accepted by acceptance, then acceptance made on the receiving report where the items were received by the government or a letter indicating. So basically what has to happen is the government has to determine whether they have explicitly accepted the work that we've sent. So in other words, you've sent product over, we've looked at our acceptance criteria, and we have explicitly say to you, yes, in fact, we're accepting that. There's also evidence of implied acceptance because the government has not voiced any concerns over the procured products or services, and the time for rejectance has passed. So let's say, for example, you send a product over, and they do a quick visual scan of it, and they put it up on a shelf, and they accept it. You assume that everything's fine with the product because you've received acceptance, but when they actually start using it, they realize that it doesn't work. That's when you start getting into these actions. So if payment has been made, or the delivered items or performed services have been retained or used, in other words, it's the government's obligation to tell you if your product's not meeting the acceptance criteria. And there are points of contention where if they don't tell you for 6 months and then try to get you to retrofit everything, you have a perfectly valid claim. Hey, you've been accepting this all along, and you needed to let us know if there's a problem. Acceptance, once the government does accept your stuff, it's final, and the government may not reject deliverables or services post-acceptance. So once they accept it, they have to pay you for it. And they may say to you, okay, going forward, we're no longer going to accept a product that looks like this. You have to make these changes. But that's why